Thank you very much for this very warm welcome. It's great to be here for me, first time at the Technical University in Bratislava, because we were with Imro Vasco at the Art University, 10 years ago. We were teaching there a bit, and for me it's great to be here and to show you some work we are doing. I call this lecture Beyond Facts and Fiction, and I hope you will afterwards maybe find out what I mean with that. This is Ernst Fuchs, my partner. We're working together since 2000, and actually longer, but we started with the office, the Next Enterprise, in the year 2000. And we're working in projects of different scales, urban interventions, realizations, but also urban concepts. And we like these different scalings because we think having a kind of intention, about architecture, about society, about how to deal, with certain thematics. It doesn't matter if it's a big or a small scale. You can turn it, and transform it into space. And small projects very often helps you also to test certain things. And therefore we appreciate to have different scales together in our office. So where does architecture start? That was something we were asking ourselves when we started with our own office 20 years ago. And we were looking for an architecture that is touching and that is somehow activating, an architecture that is touching and an architecture that also is activating people to do something. And we were questioning how can we do this kind of architecture, which is having these qualities, and we were trying to find out and to define these qualities that were beyond of functions, which were qualities about atmospheric and other qualities that we thought are important for spaces that activate yourself. We were starting to invent words, trying to express this kind of qualities we thought that are important to make these kind of spaces that have the possibility to activate people. So we were using the city as our sketch block. We were clients and architects at the same time and doing one-to-one interventions within the city. And it was funny because mostly the places we were interested in or that inspired us were wasteland areas, broken houses that were telling us stories, that had traces of former programs, of former events that were happening there, and that made us curious, and we had the feeling we could make something out of it. It was just inspiring. And it was not about a nostalgic, it was more about this kind of hidden stories. And we were thinking, how can we make a new architecture that has the same quality and richness of narrative, the same inspiration that these spaces and wastelands and old buildings have, we find in the city. Another thematic we were dealing with was the thematic of function, because function and program is something which is when you do a competition, you get a program and then you fulfill the program, and the argumentation of program and function is something that is saying, okay, this architecture is good because it's fulfilling the program. But we say that's not enough. There has to be something more than just fulfilling of the program. And we were thinking what that could be, what is the more of program that is starting to involve people into space, give them the possibility to inhabit and also give place for future needs, to be flexible. And we know a building is something we built, but then we live in there and our lives are changing, and therefore it needs this kind of flexibility and possibility for people to adapt in a way. And that's something we think that with description of quality, it's easier to describe than just with program. So this is a photograph, it's an artwork from Edgar Honetschläger, where he was showing this broken chair we found in New York, because we did a project with broken chairs. And we said each chair of this broken chair is einzigartig, it's just one, It's unique, it's just this one existing. It has a narrative, each one looks different, and losing its function, it has the possibility to be everything. You can invent something new out of it, and we thought that it's a very creative and inspiring potential this kind of broken chair has. It doesn't have to work as a chair anymore. So the chair was just exemplaric also for houses, because we also researched a lot of houses, as I showed you before, and we did out of these chairs and about research about these chairs, about talking about identity, talking about function, talking about working in processes, what that means. We made a book which was called The Pickings of the City, and for us it was a book about urban intentions we had, and the book, the concept of the book was associative reading. That means there were different text lines and images and numbers and places where we found chairs, and you could cross-read and be inspired just by different terms that were side by side, or just read a little part, and this is this kind of associative reading. We also use that part of our design process. But not with text, but also with drawing and material and in putting different things together. We like the density, and out of the density we start to develop then our projects. So the first project I will show, and you should see this whole lecture also as a kind of associative lecture, there are like different looks at different projects, different focus on different things, and trying to give you a hint what I mean beyond these facts and fiction and this essences we think architecture needs. A project we did in Lower Austria, it was asked to do a fence for a former factory of prefabricated concrete elements, and one part of the area should be used for cultural use and the other part was used as a garbage and waste area for the municipality. And actually we were very annoyed, because we said now we are invited for a competition and they asked us to do a fence. We would really want to do a bigger thing, but it was a fence. So we were thinking it should be something to divide and to close down a cultural area. And we said, I don't want to close down a cultural area. I think culture should be 24 hours available for everyone, even if it's in this very small municipality, just 2,000 inhabitants, but it's for a bigger region. And so we were thinking about the site-specific situation and also about the contents of a cultural location, and started to develop a fence which was done with prefabricated elements that you normally use to put in the ground for rain collection. I don't know if you know this. It's called Brunnenringe. I don't know the word in English. And we started to put this in the vertical and make a 130 meter long fence out of it with distances, with curves, with a very delicate adjustment to each other. And here you see the raw installation, and then we cast it in concrete so that they became stable. And here's still the construction site. And very important was also to adapt to the very slight but though existing change of levels of the existing, because we were really adjusting, making little slopings, little areas that were above, which had a step where you could sit on. So there were a lot of different small qualities. We tried to improve the area for this cultural outside, the outside area for this cultural site, but also always being aware of that you're also creating, a space, of course, on the other side. It's kind of urban situation you're constructing, even it's just a fence and it's just 2.50 meters high. And we made 2 gates. So the idea was that you could enter the area through this transforming space we called Blindgänger, which means actually hidden bomb. And the mayor of Hof am Leiterberge, he didn't like the name at all. He was protesting. He said, I didn't want to have this hidden bomb. It's not a good name for this installation. We should take another name. But it was the thing, trying to give to give the people a feeling what art and cultural site could be. So the closing was with sliding doors we just put on. It was very easy construction, and then we painted the inside with a reflecting color. And so you could close it, then you just could go 24 hours through this gangway, and when you opened it, you had an access either to the cultural site or to the garbage area, or you can put it together. If they had events, you could have a parking area, so it was a flexible possibility. And this space for us, this space containing fence, as Walter Zschocke called it in an article he wrote, I appreciate it a lot. I like this space containing fence, I like this title. He is a space that we add to this cultural site. It's a atmospheric space. You see the sunlight is doing its reflections on it, and it's a 24 hours space. At nighttime, it's connected with the public light. Here you see how it's just this 130 meter ending. You just can climb in. You have this strange space where you could also, I think, you could also do exhibition. You could make a very long bar out of it. And at nighttime, it's glooming out because it's the public light is connected, and it's turning around, and it's having this special appearance, and it's also a signature meanwhile for this area there. A big jump from adding something to a former factory area in the little village to an urban site, and this is the Biennale project Henrietta was talking about, which was called Uncommon Space, Undefined Living, and it was a transforming of a site, and originally headquarter of Siemens Hauptzentrale, which was a big office building with about 30,000 square meters of office space, surrounded by a fence, where the outdoor area was actually not used. It was more for visual, appearance, for the people working there, and there was no connect to the outside. So it was kind of that area for the surrounded urban context. And also the second intervention had to deal with the program, because this pure office building became hybrid, because we put temporary living concept inside, which means that this building suddenly became a building that had light at the weekends and at nighttime, and this makes a big change. An area that was dark and dead before suddenly became vivid and light, and there were big problems in this area also about feeling unsure, not that people didn't want to walk on the street, and of course such a program, which is a program that is the whole week, is changing a lot, making it hybrid urban element. Above all, we used this office building, or adapt, sozusagen, this office building for refugee living, which was a concept we did together with Caritas, and it was a concept for a student home where the students were living together, but really together with the refugees. That meant they also were sharing space as a room together and kitchen areas together. And as far as I know, there's not a similar project done. There was a project in München where there was a separation between the refugees and the students. They were meeting in the, let's say, in the kitchen or in the meeting areas, but living together, really living together, happened in this concept. I want to show a film which is explaining the overall context to this project. That means I have to jump out. The project is very, let's say, complex, because it is an urban concept, an urban project, which is like redefining this area on the one hand side. On the other hand side, it is this kind of refugee thematic where you say it's a concept where you try to imply a certain kind of spatial concept that also a community can develop. Also, you're looking for which one? No.
No, the first one.
This. There should be sound now. The whole. You can call it, because here it's really explaining the urban context, and these were all very important researches we did for the project itself, finding out what the area needs in the closer surrounding, because there was a big social housing around, and the one social housing needed public space, and the other one needed space for communication. And the fence that was surrounding the area was opened up at a certain starting point. For the owner of the whole area, it was impossible just to tear down the fence, because if the site belongs to you, if something happened to someone, you have to pay. But for him it was okay to open it like a public park. So it's open from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock in the evening in a certain area, and we try to connect it in the way that it's really, that we make a plaza which is connecting the inside and the outside where the gate is, making a kind of walkaway with different connects to the park areas, to make meeting points, communication areas that also help the refugees and the students to get connected with the surrounding area and with the people there. For us, the refugee thematic, we said the most important is to find communication spaces where the people, the refugees, can connect with the people around, and to step, from the elections, you always see where there's more right or left, people voting. And in the areas where there were this refugee situation, mostly the people didn't have a problem with it. And in areas where there were no refugee accommodation, there were very strong right wing, votes, because they didn't know, they just were frightened. So this was the office space we found, and for us it was like a wasteland where we say we put something inside that is giving you a bed, giving you storage, giving you a feeling of owning a kind of volume which is yours, where you also can be serve someone, invite someone, let's say it is very close, but having this gesture of owning something, and then the rest should be occupied and should be, as in a community, should be used in a community for whatever they want to do. If it's a salon, or if it's yoga courses, or whatever it is, they have a lot of space they can define by themselves. And I think that's a big benefit, because normally if you have student homes, it's very limited. You have everything, you have the kitchen, you have the bathroom, everything is connected, or meanwhile is put together in one room, and everything is predefined. The benefit here was that maybe there was less infrastructure, but you had more space for the community and for yourself. So in the end, we could realize these hadis, we call them, these elements we put in, and they, the bigger the spaces are, the more, you can, these heavy elements you could put in, and there are moving parts, and you can build, the main thing was that you can bring it in, build it up, and take it out again. And you can connect it with the electricity, and so it's an entity that is working for itself, the heavy. And then we also were designing kitchen elements. These are tables, tables that are also important for communication. You're standing around cooking together, and also these elements can be taken out again. They are like prototypic elements. The student home was closed half a year earlier than it should be by the Caritas, because there were no young refugees coming to Austria anymore, and so they couldn't fill the places they had. And there was a big protest by the students and by the refugees living at the Havi, who said, we want to stay together, we want to stay in our place here at Kempelin Park. And they made a protest. They made each one was signing that he will work for the community and that they will give more money for their monthly rent. And that just showed this, that they really were growing together and they really cared about each other, and that the project from the social part really worked out. The other part, which from the politics, that there are no other refugees coming, and for the Caritas, they were not able to keep this kind of system up. This is another story. But I don't know if you know, but in 2 years in Austria, in Germany, and where else, they built up a lot of know-how in dealing with the refugees. They built up a lot of places for communities to get started. And after 2 years, they had to build up nearly the same amount with people and places again, because there were no refugees coming anymore. And it's just amazing what a kind of waste of knowledge was done during this time. And because we were very strongly involved, and also after the Biennale in this whole project, I saw, from the back side, what is politics also doing, with this kind of this knowledge and money that is used. So the Kempelin Park, which is the outdoor intervention, still exists, and it's still working very well, meaning that all the surrounded social housing and people are connected with the students and with other offices that are meanwhile there, because there's a whole bunch of different organizations here. You see, it's a very easy wood construction we did, but it is connecting and it works for different elements. And there are a lot of different teams involved, and there's also a production for wood furniture meanwhile there, and the technical university is there, and so a lot of different, let's say, little entities of communities were coming up, and there was always a weekly meeting so that such a kind of system could start. And also use then the spaces you're proposing. For example, this copy shop, which was 30 square meters of this copy shop were split and said, we can use this for Kempelin Park for people, the students, or from the housing, that they can use this space. And it's really done because there are so many different Vereine, sometimes I have not to say the word in German because I'm missing the word Vereine, and it's really working out. And it just shows it takes longer than you think, but it works and it starts to grow, and suddenly it doesn't need the guidance of other people anymore. And that's what we always wanted. We said, well, you want to initiate something with space, with programmatic things. First, you need a kind of help to bring the people together, but if you do it in the right way, then it should start to go by itself. That was the aim. And this initiating of things that are then taken over by the people to invade, to inhabit themselves is something we want to do in the social housing in each building we are doing. We want that the people start to inhabit space. that can be mentally, but it also can be physically. Mentally, I mean you can also just enjoy space. That's also something very valuable if you enjoy space. But you also, in this way, it's something where you say it's a meeting point, it's a pleasant space where you say it's possibilities of good communication. This is a competition where I just want to show that these kind of spaces where communication is getting started, where people dare to enter a building. And in this case, it was a competition for my university in Vienna, University of Applied Arts, who had the problem that the entrance was not very representative, and they had a problem not enough space. So there was this competition between a historical building element and also two historical, actually Schwanzer, which is from the 70s, and Ferstel, who is from the 1880s. Two different typologies where they wanted to have a new building that is connecting. We called it the missing link. And we said each building has its qualities. You have the quality of the Ferstel building. High ceilings, thick walls, different temperature, different windows. It has a certain grace, it has a certain quality. You have Schwanzer, which is more kind of a loft building, a kind of industrial building. And we wanted to put in an element, a spatial element that is connecting, which is carrying the library, which is carrying exhibition space, which is carrying also lecture spaces, and that is connecting and is also a kind of entrance situation to this university. The second thing we did is that we wanted to connect the area also with the Museum of Angewandte Kunst. Okay, I'll show you later. So we said there's a new heart for this complex, and this new heart is having an additional, different, very open space to connect these different spatial qualities. So here you see it also in the section. You see more this kind of Schwanzer spaces. You see the quality of the Ferstel, and then the new building, which is more a fluid space, and trying to connect and open up to the other areas. So this is this heart entrance, which is also communicating between the street and then the yard in the back from the Museum of Angewandte Kunst. Here's the Museum of Angewandte Kunst. There's an outdoor area with this famous platform at the museum, and also a restaurant, and there's a fence, and we said why not pulling down the fence and putting this together so that the university entrance area and library and exhibition space, that this somehow can be connected. And this element is a tower for ateliers, which we dare to put looking to Ringstraße, but they said that's a no-go because it's protected area. And we said it's important that even in this historic situation that you also feel, the new thinking of the students and of our time to be part of this Ringstraße. So this was this very little stepping back a bit, but though looking onto the Ringstraße, and I think this was also a reason why we didn't win. But who knows, maybe it was something else. Here you see the model of the project of the missing link. So this mental infrastructure, and I mean these are all things that are maybe through atmospheric elements, maybe because you place it in the right way, that things can flow and be connected somehow and can be used. This project we did in South Tyrol in Kaltern, and it's a public bath, and it's placed on a little lake called Kalterer See, which has a very strong protected area, as you see. So there's just a very small sites where you can really go to the lake. And this area, which was owned by the municipality, they wanted to enlarge this lakeside bath, and though they wanted to keep it also for all the tourists coming. So they said it would be good if there's not everything, closed, the site is closed, that we still can use this site also for the tourists that are coming along. So we made a concept where you're coming and there's not a house who is keeping, the infrastructure for the building, but which is a platform on an open plaza. And this concept was actually we said we take a piece of the lake out and put it on the site. So we have the quality of the horizon, which the lake also has, have this can-delivered water, and have a two-story two-story building actually, which also adds additional qualities to the existing site, which is a wonderful lake and lawn where you can lie, and we have little trees. So we say if we interfere, if we add something to this beautiful situation, it should have additional qualities. So here you see this very cultivated and beautiful landscape in South Tyrol. And here, coming here, you see this platform who is taking the highest point, jutting out and having suddenly a two-story situation, hiding all infrastructure, the machineries and everything for the bath underneath, also change, gather stuff like this, keeping this Lido, it's called, it's a restaurant, like an artifact within the situation. There was just a little addition made, and having now a situation where you just have these little pavilions and people walking around the lake have no problems to have an overlook over the lake. And concerning the program, here you can see how it looks, the platform from above. This was the entrance area for the people entering the bath, but the people who are tourists going around the lake or just to the Lido, they can go over the platform, and they also have a shop, a bar, which works in two sides. They also find infrastructure that they can use, though they are not in the bath. So it's a kind of double use. It's a trying, to somehow to connect these different elements. Here you can see this pavilion, and here you see the street where the people walk around. This is the bar which works in two sides, and you always can have this look. And we call this sun deck, the top, and it's actually, you feel like on the railing of a ship, have a very different view onto the landscape around. And the big connecting area, here you see there are like elements. You have all these castles in South Tyrol, so you have also a little castle coming out of the pool. But this castle is a light trunk that is giving light to a cave where a whirlpool is inside. And these elements are also the carrying cores of the whole structure. But we, of course, were playing a bit with it. And here you can also see windows that are in the bottom of the pools to connect the upper both sides. So this railing and then this kind of pavilion architecture done out of wood, all prefabricated wood construction, quite can-delivering. And these elements that are coming out, that has to do something with the structure underneath, still a connect between up and down. And then you have these stairs, which we call the sun stairs, because it's exactly south orientated, and if you want to become very brown, you can sit there and you can expose a bit and look also onto the sea. But this area is also used for public events, and they make in the evening, in summertime, they make big, let's say, theaters and different things. They did that before, and had to build up a stage, and therefore in summertime, when there are most of the people using the pool, the bath, half of the site was taken away by the built-in construction, and so we connected it with the sun, with the sun stairs and with this connecting from up and down level, and so they gained space. This whole project, I mean, it's crazy to cantilever pools. Normally you can just dig them in, normally. But in this specific situation, it was like this, that there was not a lot of place around the lake, and the double story, we gained square meters, and we got this benefit of looking, coming from above and looking around, and therefore the municipality, and also to make this site more cultural, more in a cultural site, which they were interested in, and therefore they invested in this kind of architecture. So you see, underneath level, we call it aquarium. It has different cores that are carrying the whole construction. It's a 2,000 square meter cast sculpture, actually. Here you see the lights. The people love to make photos there, and you have light reflections and looking through little pavilions standing there to show you around. Can someone tell me how late it is?
You have still enough time.
Yeah? Okay. And here you see this different kind of light situations and also space and surface situations. There's a surface which is soft, which is called, it's very often used for sport. It's a soft granulat. Then you have keys, so different surfaces, which also means different acoustics, different haptics to sit down, and because all these people running around there are half naked, so this feeling, of the body and the surface, and so here you have a little atrium, and it's amazing because this body of concrete, concrete is also called artificial stone, as you know, and it's also storing, of course, the heat. So at daytime, when it's hot, it's heating up. In the morning, at afternoon, it's still, more cooling the place, but then in the evening, it's somehow enlarging. Also in autumn, the time where you feel warm there, because it is like a big, let's say, storage of cold or hot temperature, which also has a very nice effect. Here you see one of these enclosed elements. We were interested to have this open space, being very aware of this nakedness and the body, and also interested of very intimate, small elements within the cores that are 7 meters high and have light reflections coming from above inside. So there are 5 different of these cores, and here there's another core which is for the rain room. We call it the rain room, and it's an interactive, let's say, water installation. When you come in, the rain is falling and the light is coming from above, so it's a very atmospheric space. And I think that such, spaces, such experiences you have, it's an entertainment bars. You know how entertainment bars partly look like. They have the huge sliding things and here we really try to also attract people just by very atmospheric and, let's say, hardware of space elements. And our feedback is that the people really enjoy it. We sometimes get letters, or there was a guy, I also showed the photograph where you saw the people swimming, above you. He won a competition with a photograph he did in Carlton, and he sent it then to us, so there's some kind of fun communications happening. And I think it's important that public spaces really support people with high quality spaces. So atmospheric fiction means transformation of space through atmospheric elements. And as I said, sometimes you're using installations or smaller projects or exhibitions to test something. And we were invited, you see there was a list of Kiki Smith and a lot of artists actually, to transform, or to do something within a room of the Winter Ballet, which belonged to Prince Eugen, Barockian architecture, and there's a lot of paintings, a lot of tapestry. It's very dense and golden. It's a glorifying somehow of this Prince Eugen, who was an important warrior in Vienna and Austria. And mostly there are frescoes in the ceiling that are celebrating these people, And we got a room, the very last one actually. And this very last room didn't have any ceiling painting anymore. But actually the Red Salon was the room where he died. Very interesting, because he never was sleeping in the representative rooms, but in other ones. However, we said we want to do something in opposition of this very Barockian and celebrating of the emperor. We want to do an intervention where people are doing the painting in one-to-one on the ceiling about their situation. And we put a 5-meter air element inside, ring inside, which was with water inside, which was moving when you touched it. Here you can see, and it started to make, through the light reflection, it started to make patterns on the wall. And this was just generated by people touching it. So when people were standing around, suddenly there was a kind of communication through this object, which was done, with the people. You felt the other one through this object, but you also started to change this kind of ceiling. And therefore we called it silent conquest, because we invaded this Barockian, thinking with a kind of democratic element. Here you can see my children, because it was like a fountain and the people were always throwing coins inside. So last day we came with goggles and they took out, I think it was 70 euros altogether. It was 69 something, and they were very happy, but it was ice cold water, so really was okay that they got it. So another transformation of and I forgot to say that this ring, we also worked together with a parfumeur, because we also tried to the haptic of the element, we tried to put a smell on it where you want to go there and touch it. So there was So there was this testing of smells, which was very interesting for us, and to also have this edition. So for an exhibition, Wien von oben, which means Wien from the eye perspective, was showing maps and images from Vienna, different views onto a city. And we know now we have GPS and we have different new possibilities to show maps in three-dimensional ways. And in the 15th century, they had these drawings, and so everything always started to have a certain kind of grid where you try to where you try to locate elements. And we said we would like to find something for this exhibition space, a tool, a background that is also locating these different thematics the curators had for this exhibition, and it was very interesting. It was about measuring, it was about representation, it was about new approaches with skis and artistic approaches, give them all the same frame where the different ideas how maps can be used or representation of a city. And here you see we have this different kind of grids, and we decided that we want to build in a kind of grid situation into this exhibition site that is holding these different elements. And it was funny because there was also a grid on the ceiling existing, and we used this ceiling grid also to transform it into, to put it together with our grid we implied. And each room had a kind of island where there were different elements, a card, a model, information, which was more kind like an associative lecture, different elements put together to give you a feeling about the thematic. And around on the wall you had then very specific, there was also a lot of text and explanation because it was a very well-researched project. Here you see on the wall we had this cardboard which is also showing the negative of the grid, and of course we were also having guiding lines through all the exhibition space, and it was always important that the people are guided through the space in a good way. The curators actually wanted to have very closed spaces, and we said we want to have open spaces, and they said if it works with the orientation you can open it up. And we managed. In the end, we could make this more fluid spaces. And here you see the towers of each chapter and the islands, and the grid that is always just becoming physical when you need it. There was a mood map where the people could make a stick. There were cards for being angry, falling in love, being frightened. And there were 4 different chapters and cards, and the people loved it. You see, there are a lot of points, and they put the points, and they were writing on the card why they liked or hated a certain space. And it was so strongly used that they now, from the Wien Museum, were thinking about how to reflect all this information they got, because there were so much, about certain places where people say they don't like this corner at all, and then suddenly there were 50. So it was interesting, in a feedback of certain city situations, what the people liked or didn't like. This is the pavilion in Grafenegg, also this try of transforming, being between the trees, trying to make a roof for a catering pavilion that is somehow light, somehow organic in between the trees. And we organized the bar and everything. And also the roof, because we wanted, you see all the trees, the trunks of the trees. We tried to make a form that the trees can stay. But then we also had to look how we can hold this roof. And having this ground plan, we said these are places where we say the roof would be good. And then we did on a 3D, we put on these sticks, these columns we defined, we put a cloth in the computer, and it was deforming because of the Schwerkraft, and this became then the form of our roof. That means following the Schwerkraft also means that you have the maximum or the best construction for constructive, you have the best line for construction. And therefore, we could make a very thin concrete roof. You see, there's this topography of the roof, there's this construction drawing, and here you see it was built on site. It was it's like a hillside, and this is how it came out. These columns were connected, I show later, with light also. So we have closing down in winter time, because it also can be used as a bar for punch or something, but they can close down. It's really a public pavilion where you can stand and bring your own stuff, or it opens up the boxes. And then we had this light concept, because there are little light elements in the park already, and we transformed them and connected them with the columns, and so now you have these elements that can be tables, but they can be light. And you see here there are also these kind of table lights that were existing before, and in the back you see the stage. I will show later. If it's not, I'm too slow, I think. There's another transformation. This is an object we did for an exhibition, and we were asked to show 10 interviews for this exhibition. So now this is making, it doesn't matter. I think it doesn't matter, because otherwise it takes too long. So you can read in a talk I had with Ernst within the internet. It was foggy chat room, it was called. We said we want to do something that doesn't have an up and down, which makes thirsty for audio, which endless deep holes, and out of these qualities we defined, we said we will start with a sphere. It's not loud enough, but actually you can hear out of each hole, you can already hear voices. Sometimes you recognize, there was also Angelika Fitz, who is now from the AZB, the chef of the AZB. So we defined a sphere, and on the sphere 10 zones for the interviews. Being swallowed up. And this project we did nearly 20 years ago, and it was our first project where we used the computer to transform something. It was done in the Mayas, in the program, and it was just a standard operation we did to transform this sphere. And we are using the computer for transformation, for generating forms, also of course to do our projects. But I think for us it's always important what the idea, what your concept is, and how you use the computer. Then it really makes sense and something interesting comes out. It's not just about generating forms. We have some kind of interest or quality we want to get from this form. And in this sense, it was this, it ended up earlier, I think. So you said it was an audio object that had a whispering when you were in the space. You heard the whispering, and when you came closer, suddenly you heard the interview, and then you climbed in, and then you were somehow swallowed by this other space. And we like this inside-outside, which turns me space without limit, as where is a building starting, where is it ending, and Grafenegg, which is an open air pavilion, though has the quality also of giving you the feeling of being inside or being outside, but it's just a composition of space we did. And there is a huge site of 31 hectares in Grafenegg, which is a historical landscape garden with a castle in the middle, and we had to look for the site ourselves, where to place the building. And there were different, you see, malls, so going deeper, and little mountainsides and groups of trees and different things. And all these landscape elements already were for us important spatial elements we took into consideration. In the end, we decided to take this quite large mold and to make it a bit deeper and to put up an artificial hillside to generate displays for the stage, and which also generated this combination was the connecting and sidelines of different parts from the castle, from the trees, from a gate that is here, where we had a lot of guidelines where we said we want to build up a spatial scenario on this area. So on the one hand side, we had this wish of building up in this landscape garden another scenery, because landscape garden means walking through different sceneries. This is a kind of scenographic composition you're doing as a landscape gardener. You're walking through different spaces. Sometimes they also had a ruin, or they had a little pond, which is also existing there. So we said we are also a part in this landscape, and we are also a specific scenery we are generating here, which also should be connected with all the others. The second parameter was that we should make a stage for natural acoustics, which means that you have to take in consideration, for example, that if the distance from the stage to the thing is more than 40-45 meters, the energy of sound is not strong enough. You won't hear it anymore. So it doesn't make sense to make it bigger than 45 meters. And there were also other criteria we were having to take in consideration, and one was also what you see, you can hear. That means you should always have a direct look to the stage, which of course also connected very well with our attempts with the landscape garden, which also had a lot to do with this visual scenographic situation. Here you see the building as an instrument, as this little hillside, and how this terrace up is combined also with acoustic qualities. And the tower needs a certain volume to generate a good acoustic. It has something to do with volume. We generate it with the heights, and then it's compressing, it's collecting all the sound energy which is produced in this stage and you're throwing it out. And that's what a natural acoustic is doing. You see, we have also a backstage area here, which is digged in. We did a lot of models. We always do a lot of models, but in this case, we also had big scale models to talk with the acoustic engineer, Karl-Heinz Müller, who is actually, he loves music, and he loved also to work on the models. And we also loved to work on the models, and so we had a good relationship, and we're forming this acoustic scape together, and the asymmetric situation is very good for acoustics. So our way to think the lines, and it was actually connecting very well, but we had to make adjustments, and we did also, of course, certain elements that you can adjust also the sound later. For us important, it shouldn't be a stage where there's an end, you should look through, it should be something like, the trees, it should be something that is opening up, and the whole thing should be used around. Because it's a place in this landscape garden, and if there's no concert, you should enjoy. You can walk up here, until here, look in the other direction, that's all what you can do. We also initiated that there is contemporary art placed within the huge park, and there was a program which lasted for 8 years, where they always invited contemporary artists to look for a place, like we did, to build, to make a statement, a contemporary art statement. So you see from around you, this also appears. Here again, this drawing with the artificial mountain, which is also hiding a sanitary situation. Then we have here the backstage area, so it's a building that though has indoor situations, and this connecting line where you go through the stage side, which is connecting also to the backstage area. Here you can see this is the backstage area with natural light, which also can be used for dinners, for symposiums, for other things. The stage, where you can see this looking into the sky. And this is just this scenario. If you come and arrive, you have two possibilities to enter. Where I said you are outside, you're always outside, but though you have this experience of entering, which when it's full and people are on stage and the musicians are on stage, somehow it gives you a wonderful feeling, very festliches Gefühl. And we always liked this attempt that there are also places where you just can sit on the lawn, where you don't have to pay a lot, because they really want also young people to become part of these festivals and to enjoy music. Meanwhile, this festival, which should last 4 weeks in August, September, is enlarged. The stage is every weekend actually from June until September. There are different music events there. And we did a lot of additions. This, for example, the cabin for the sound was added much, much later, because at the time we built it, they said we don't have enough time for that and not enough money for it. So also with this project we had to fight a lot about the money, and the first relaxing situation was the first time when the musicians came on stage testing the acoustics, because everyone felt it really turned out nicely, and then everyone was relaxed. But before, doing the whole construction, which was not so easy, it was a big, also not so easy thing. So here you see full 1,700 seats plus additional seats on the outside, and what we enjoy, again, also these little mountains are used even in summer times for sliding. Amazing, it works really well. And, proposing different qualities, make people invent things to do. In an urban context, interweaving, using the different elements from the surrounding is a competition we won in Mainz, AZM, for an archaeological center in Mainz, with a scientific building and, of course, a lot of storage space. And we tried to work, this was a leftover space, and we tried to make an analysis of the different elements around and bring them together on the site. So connecting different connections to the outside, and to generate a new place of identity. So you see the connect with the scientific building is the opposing Blockrandbebauung. Then we have the park, which became part of our building, which is the socle of the building, which is hiding the parking garage and the storage space. And then we have the museum, which is a landmark and is connected with the old city, and the street which is connected with the old city. As you see, this connection was important for us, and it's leading onto this plateau, this park, and it's also climbing up into the building, because the Archaeological Center in Mainz is also proposing or also giving, you don't have to pay a ticket for a certain tour you can do, and it's always in between the inner space and exhibition and looking to the city. So there's this in between the two elements. This is an image of the way up. This is an image being between the inside and the outside. This just shows that we are working, of course, working model, sketch, but 3D drawing, working model, and with the construction. Of course, the construction was also an important thematic here, because we have quite big, we have nowhere is a column in the inside, and actually we have a carrying outside skin out of concrete. For us it was important that all these pathways, these connecting ways between the different areas, the park and the city, can still be done, because you can walk under the building, and then you're meeting also the cafeteria and the library, and it's all about activating also this outdoor space. The cantilevered spaces are also supporting, giving a quality to the outdoor space that is very loud, as you see the street and the train, but if it's cantilevered, you can, do something about the sound, and so you could create very good quality for an outdoor scenario. So now I climb, this is nearly the last project, in the urban context, this interweaving of program and space. As you see, this is a topographic situation, and it's a situation of 3 hectares of Kreisverkehr. All traffic around, and in the middle it's empty. And they built the U1, a subway station there. So they said, if the subway station is there, we should do something, because suddenly it gets a value, but they have this problem of these six lines of traffic around. And we did a concept how we could deal with it. And you see there's a topographic situation where there are, because of the acoustics, they built little hills, to protect themselves. The whole site is falling down, and you have a wonderful view to the south of Vienna. Here you have the old city, here's new situation, and the topography, we used the topography, as you see here, to connect these elements and to say you can start here walking, and then here you're suddenly on the first floor, and then you can be connected with these other sites. So we try to use the situation there, the topographical situation, to connect. Above all, we of course had a look about the urban situation, about high points. This is just, of course there were much more plans about it, but I just want to say what we were looking at, these high points, this grown old fabric of the city with certain height that is also coming onto the site. Then education area campus, which will be enlarged. Meanwhile, the competition was on already. Generale Arena for football, a lot of fans are coming there. They want to come directly from the subway to the arena. This was a big thematic, and also connect maybe the campus with it. And we also wanted to have the main, for ASFINAG, for the main headquarter for ASFINAG was also a task in this whole element. And we really tried to find the programming also, not just the bodies, but also not just this, to sculpture the urban body, but also the program, to try to find programs that are connecting, so to say, with the out and the inside, so that you start to, provoke a connection, that people come from the outside to the inside. It's all about connecting, weaving together. And here we have this scenario of different typology we were proposing, and here we have also these different horizons we put onto this site, connecting also from the body, from the physical, from the outdoor space, these different elements. Here you can see there's still also this kind of topographic element connection and these different elements around. So this is the black plan, and now it's the last project, which is transforming this plan, which is transforming a landscape and all the information carried on the landscape into a sculpture, which we did for Lower Austria, to show to talk all about their cultural sites and events they are doing in Lower Austria. You see here a hole. This hole is Vienna. As you might know that Lower Austria is the biggest Bundesland of Austria, but it has this hole of Vienna. And we said we were working together with a musician, and because he made a sound for this object, and we said we will start off with landscape, because there are a lot of artists that are very inspired by the different landscapes of Lower Austria, and there are also different places for music, different music that, original music that is done in Lower Austria. And so he did collection of different places with music, and we made an analysis of different, let's say, about these maps, and we decided to see these three different heights, Flachland, Hügelland, and the mountains, to use them, these different heights, which also have different qualities, in the geometry, because where the mountains are, it's a much denser network of triangles. To transform them within a program, transformation program, which is sucking in and turning around and transforming this flat map, as a topographic flat map, into a body. And we did this with all these different elements, with Flachland, with Bergland and Hügelland, and you see, it's not easy to see. However, they are a bit different because of the geometry of the computer is also different, of course, for the flat land and for the thing. And we took one, and this was the flat land, to transform it into an object. We decided the size and how we will put it up. And all this surface still was carrying exactly the information of our map and of our different sites and locations. Locations the curators wanted to show and wanted to show that people can look it up or can see it. And so there was a homepage done, and there was a program wrote. So here's the installation of the sound. The sound points were also connected with places. It was an overall installation. And then you were coming with an iPad and had the mask, and then could start to find the different points and find out what kind of locations or events are taking place at these points. We called it also informed sculpture. We are very interested how you can connect these digital tools with space, because very often you say, I have my tablet, I can ever look it up in the tablet. So what does it make sense to, for example, to make exhibition spaces, if you can see it all in. But I think being curious, looking for something and getting then this information, using the tool to get the information, but though having this spatial experience helps you to keep it much better in mind. Maybe it's much more fun to explore it, to discover it. And I think these are important. For me, it's important to show that space and also, let's say, complex spaces are still relevant, or make it even maybe more interested to use also these digital tools. So this is the last project. This is the final image about a house, a city house we just finished. And I will show another time. So I say thank you.
Thank you very much, but this is still not the end, because now
I'm happy if there is a question. I'm very happy to take the question.
I'm happy as well if there will be a question. So, are there some questions right now, or some brave? Oh, please, yes.
So thank you very much for a very interesting lecture. I would be very curious about, from your point of view, what is the difference between architecture and sculpture? Because I see there are many, like, for example, the installation with the sound, the wall. It's somehow, I would think it's maybe more like sculpture than architecture, and also the auditorium. I also find some kind of sculptural perspective in your architecture. So I don't know. I'm just curious about what do you define sculpture and what is architecture, and vice versa.
It's an interesting question. I had once an interview. It's a very long time ago with Stella Rohlig. She was working for Ö1 at that time. She's now the director of the Belvedere in Vienna. And we did this project within the city, Hirnsegel. At the very beginning, I was showing images where I said we were making installations in the city, brain sale and stuff like this. And she said we have a practice, our practice is working like an artist, because we found our we found our tasks by ourselves and were exploring it. Meanwhile, I think there are a lot of architects starting to find their own task and working on it, So you can say that's also an artistic way. If we do installations and they're maybe in between art and architecture, I say I'm an architect. So for me, it always has something to do with architecture, because I know I'm thinking different than an artist does, somehow. It is like this. It's my experience that if an artist does a plaza, for example, public space, there's sometimes competition for public space. If an architect is doing it, or an artist, it's very different, just the point of view you're looking on it, And so I'm always an architect, even if there are sometimes cultural or maybe artistic or art pieces coming out, who cares? There's one definition existing that always has to do with function, if this is space that doesn't have a definite function, or it doesn't have to function, because architecture normally serves a certain function, but maybe you have a better definition about it, but it's, as far as it's a philosophical definition maybe, but as far as I know, it has to do something also with supporting, a certain kind of function, if it's a roof or whatever. If it's not serving a function anymore, then you might say now it's a sculpture, but in the end, who cares? If it's a good culture, a good building, if it works out, if it makes the people excited, happy, relaxing, inventive.
But perhaps you have touched it in the very beginning as you've been explaining the idea with the fence.
Yeah.
And you have said that for you it's very important always to have the added space, because this is the value.
Yeah.
And I just make a remark, okay, added space is the added value of architecture, and perhaps that's the difference between art and architecture, because you always should have this kind of added space that you can use, as you have put it right now.
But the question is, what is use? So it's the same question, what is function? It's so relative.
It's very relative.
And I just was invited for a discussion about beauty, which was with the Sargmeister. There's a big exhibition at the MAC in Vienna. It's talking about beauty, also beauty in architecture and art. We need more beauty in our life. You also think so? More beauty? Why not? But the question is, what is beauty? And there was a question about beauty, if it's important for architecture to make our lives, our city better. Functionalizing beauty. And I think this is fantastic. It doesn't matter if it's brain cell, if it's this additional space, if it's mental infrastructure. Beauty is also a word which is not capable, which is somehow atmospheric, which is somehow, and let's say it should be also part of a functional program. I want to have a toilet, but I also want to have beauty. And if you don't bring it, you won't win the competition. So that's what I meant about function, Function is so strong, it's so pragmatic, You can argue with it. You get the program and you fulfill the program. But all the in-between that makes things work, that makes a surrounding being involved with a building, and all these things, they are never written in a program, Sometimes there's a preamble with wishing something, but this is a big problem in architecture, that these values that are so important to give architecture this cultural meaning we really need, I think. It's kicked away by the pragmatics. It's kicked away. Very easy. And we have to find ways to somehow find placeholders, to say it's important.
Perhaps that's again this added value that architects could or should give with their projects.
Yeah.
If it is space or free space, as it was put on the Biennale right now, or whether is it a beauty or whatever.
Yeah.
Or kind of social justice or whatever.
Yeah. It could be filled with different things. And of course we are working very strongly on this interaction between user and space, this activating of space. It's not always meant that people have then to be active, but I didn't show today housing, so social housing or housing projects, but it's like the bath, you can put things like this, that it's possible, much easier possible to enlarge your apartment, to make it smaller, to share it with others, to make other, things possible. And that's, I think we are we're always trying, and also in this house also has, you know, kind of off space that, well, then you can use the garden and all people together, and so it's, you can put it in every project, you can put in some kind of this kind of elements.
Some more questions from the audience.
I have a question, like you have a lot of creativity and I like the experiment you do with the project, but I was wondering, the project you showed the cloud with the concrete roof, it really reminds the Sana project for the Serpentine Gallery in London. If it was like I don't know what was the timing, if it was earlier or if you were inspired or if it's a completely different process that led to a little bit similar shape or different.
I think you mean it was the mural roof.
Yeah,
it was the mural roof, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Now we know there are also more roofs, and the mural roof was before us, and there are also other roofs that even were before the mural roof, you know. So it's a history of this kind of, but I think from the spatial, what we wanted to do with the space, it's very different, because the mural is a completely different effect, because there you are, it's a more in a kind of artistic space, as ours is much more bound to earth. It's more this concrete, very heavy element that suddenly becomes so light, and it's more like, it's like Rochen, you know, Rochen. It's animal in the sea, you know, that is flying above you. And in the Serpentine Gallery, it was very much about this reflecting and how you see yourself, and so. So for me, it was very different how you. But of course, it is this roof, and we had it in our research. Of course, we're always researching this. But there are more pavilions, or you could say things like this. But I didn't see the concrete in this way. That's already, you know.
Perhaps I can ask a question which is a little bit like a stupid one, but I remember one lecture done by Jan Tabor.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was introducing at that time Austrian young architecture offices. And he was somehow thematizing the problematic of the names of the offices. It was somehow like his favorite topic, actually, to speak about how the Austrians, how crazy offices they create with these funny names like Querkraft and Next Enterprise and whatever. So what was behind this kind of, was it a kind of movement really, like to,
I mean,
why the name and what does it mean?
Actually, I was with the Poor Boys, what was the first group where I just became part of it, you know. There were, Ernst was part of it, but then also others. They invented the Poor Boys enterprise, you know, and enterprise, of course, was something new and the thing, and the enterprise, we all know the series and everything. And then when the Poor Boys where everyone was doing something else, and we said, you know, Ernst Fuchs and Marie-Therese Harnoncourt, we have both names that are coded already, you know. Ernst Fuchs, he's a painter, you might know him. And I have an uncle who is actually well-known conductor of music. And so we say, let's be Next Enterprise. So there was not, and also because we liked it, you know, from looking in front and think, but that's all. It's not so deep. It's not
because I saw that it has something to do with the first wave of this very strong experimentation architecture of 60s, like Co Himmelblau and the Rückerco and all these groups, and it was again like a movement after tens of years.
Yes, but the poor boys, I would say when we did the next enterprise, but the poor boys and Querkraft and ADG and all this, I would say that was fun at that time. I mean, one has the feeling, one wants to feel the group somehow, you know. And it was like this. The Poor Boys, for example, was a cooperative where you said everyone can work with us who wants to try out and is thinking the same. It was not so. In the end, there were mainly 5 people, mainly working on the things, but it was very open, and also the projects. I mean, it was not about earning money. It was much more about really finding out something. There were spraying on the city, and then, you know, a lot of different, and we did, of course, there were also installations, drinking installations for office parties and stuff like this. It was all very, you know, trying out.
Some connections between 60s and...
Yeah, they often say there are connections, and I think it's true that involving, you know, your body and doing, and somehow this wish, because we had this architecture around, you know, there was a lot of new housing built up, which was so uninteresting. And so that, you know, we had all these areas a bit outside of the, and so I was trying to find out something, you know.
Piece of revolting was there.
Yeah,
definitely.
In a bit, and we have to say the 60s here also got stuck somehow, you know. They did their art pieces and then it didn't really go on. There were some little pieces. I mean, Günter Domenik, of course, we all traveled there, Favoriten, the bank, fantastic, you know, but little pieces. The main production was something else, and it was very dead. We said we don't want the dead architecture. But how do you do a not dead architecture? You know, a new not dead architecture. And therefore we said, and also the design process, I didn't show anything of design process because it's somehow another story, but we said intensity leave tracks. And each thought you have and which is forming the project, it's like a stone in the water, which generating then this form, you feel it somehow. It suddenly becomes so, it's fitting in there. It's like the Grafeneck, it's just becomes part of it, though it's so different, but it's connected.
Yes.
And we like to connect even in the urban minds. We like to try to connect, you know, to.
It's really like the architecture is growing out of the context. It's really like a very, very...
Yeah, somehow. Because you can find so much on the site, you know, or in the surrounding, you know, that you can use to be inspired, to get the benefit for the program, for the... Yeah.
Okay, some more questions from the side of
Everyone is very tired, I think.
audience.
I have no idea how late it is. Was I very long?
Like a standard.
Okay, like a standard
Length.
standard length.
Not very long.
I want to ask you one other question. I'm wondering if you have such a good client, or your power, the strength to do creative stuff and experimenting is so strong and positive. Because I think the project you have shown, they're wonderful in a way that there's so much playfulness in them. But it seems like you must have wonderful clients who accept all your ideas. Or
So that it's different. It's different, and it's. I mean, it's like this. For example, the Mainz project, which we won, but which was not built, unfortunately, and it's in Germany, and you know Germany, and they don't are not so, with sculptural things, they are not so. But it was perfect. The program worked perfect. We did a splitting of a program, and it was organized in such a good way. And the same thing was in Kaitan. It was really organized in a very good way, and there was a benefit. So I always say no function, no program, but we completely deal with the program, because that's sure, the program has to work, but it has to be even, if you want to find additional things, you have to play the piano. So all these projects were convincing even people that might say, no, if we don't have to take it, but was so much convincing from the concept, what it can do, maybe also activating, this public space and so on, that the things they want, you have to bring the solution 1000%, and then additional things,
In one of your statements, you have said that exactly, you have touched it right now, that from the beginning, the space is not somehow programmed for a certain use, that only in the process of using it will be discovered what is the proper use of the space. And so when you look back at your projects, was there sometimes a kind of really surprise how the space was actually used after years? Perhaps completely different, surprising that you would have ever imagined?
So we did, for example, a rooftop remodeling was one of my first, projects, and there we did also, it was financed with social housing, and there was just one space apartments, and we did all the construction we needed in a higher level. We made platforms that could be occupied. And we also had terrace, flat roof that could be occupied. You could climb out of the window and use this. And the window, of course, was done like, like a bit bigger, nearly like a door. So it's always like already. But there I was partly astonished. And then how the people really, it was like this, that the people, I was once doing a tour and someone said, you have to come, you have to see my apartment, how I put everything in. And so I went in and I was like shocked, because he was all putting this furniture you were buying at Kika or I don't know, he was putting in a round bed, I remember, and thing. But she was really enjoying and she was really using, because we had also it's not too complicated, but there were certain parts where you sometimes just close it down in the roof, close it down because it's too complicated, but we shaped it and we left it, and they were all using it and enjoyed it so much. And I said, that's wonderful. I don't like her style, but that's how it should be done. And of course this happened more often. And it should happen. Maybe I don't even know where it happened everywhere. Yeah. So in Kaitan, for example, of course we said for these public events, that was also important for the municipality, but meanwhile they are doing under the deck, they did big cooking events, for example, presentation for cars. They had a lot of things going on already there. The only thing that I always wanted to have down there was actually a sound. I would love to have a composed sound, in three-dimensional sound installation down there. I think it might be wonderful. That, as far as I know, didn't happen yet, but they did a lot of things already there, and also using the deck for. So this really works out very nicely, actually. Meanwhile, but there the client that was quite problematic, because the mayor, when we won and everything was okay, but there was a big political discussion between, because there were people who said you're not allowed you shouldn't build to at this lake. And there were big protests, and they said the mayor was cheating and he was getting wrong material that says it's okay, but it's not. And so there was a discussion going on, and this discussion also led to the situation that the mayor actually became weaker, and the second election he lost. And then the new mayor was one of those who were fighting against this, not against the building. They were never fighting against the building. They were always fighting against a construction on the side of this natural preserved situation. However, that's bad luck. But this happens sometimes more often with specific projects.
Sometimes it's like, it might be a little bit like counterproductive if you design an amazing architecture, then you build it in this kind of protected landscape, and you actually bring more and more people to see it and to visit it, and well, so it is not that good for the plot, so I can imagine that there must have been a kind of discussions about this.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no other questions from your side, okay, so I would like to thank you once again. It was really fantastic to have you here and to hear your presentation. Thank you so much. My sa vidíme teda o na budúci týždeň s ďalším prednášajúcim.